Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AIBs. Please take your seats, as we'll be starting very soon. Here's a flavour of the remarkable variety of productions in this year's AIBs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome to the AIBs 2022. It's our first live awards event since 2019. My goodness, it's been a hell of a long time. Now, it's great to see so many people, even if you are still talking and chatting here in Church House, Westminster, and in 3 dimensions rather than on a screen. Isn't that wonderful? Now, thank you to everybody that's travelled here today from across the UK, across Europe, and other parts of the world. It really does feel as though the world is returning to some sense of normality, even despite of the immense challenges that geopolitics and climate change are throwing at us. Now, tonight, we are just meters away from where almost the entire world's attention was focused 2 months ago, as the UK said farewell to the late Queen. And it's going to be again in May next year for the coronation of King Charles III. The AIBs really couldn't be more at the heart of London and the United Kingdom, and indeed the world. Now, as a quick aside, I feel that I need to offer an apology to CNN. Where are they? Are they on table 8, CNN? No, over there, CNN, yeah. My apology is, and I've already talked to Dan about this, it's slightly tongue-in-cheek, because for 10 years we were at LSO St Luke's in Old Street, and the CNN team had to travel across London from the West End, from their old place near Liberties, to join in the celebrations. Then, just as they relocated, just before lockdown, we moved to Westminster. Awfully sorry, but such is life. Now, moving on, I'd like to say a very big thank you to our event partner for the AIBs 2022, which is Radio Taiwan International. They're at tables at the front here. Now, as we all know, Taiwan is a beacon of democracy and freedom of expression. So it's fitting that as we celebrate international journalism, RTI and Taiwan's ministries of foreign affairs, of culture, and of digital affairs are all supporting these awards. And I'm honoured to be able to introduce the President of the Republic of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen, to say a few words.
AIB Chief Executive Simon Spence-Wick, RTI Chair Cheryl Lai, Taiwan Representative to the UK, Kelly Xie Wu-Chao. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank AIB for partnering with RTI to recognize the important work done over the past years by media organizations and journalists worldwide. The stories shortlisted for this year's award reflect the many challenges that we face today, from the pandemic to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to the struggles for freedom in countries around the world. Amid the global expansion of authoritarianism, the spread of disinformation and crackdowns on media freedom have placed unprecedented burdens on journalists. In the face of these shared challenges, it is imperative that we work together to uphold press freedom and make our societies more resilient to authoritarian influence. A free press and an informed public are essential to government accountability and a functioning and more resilient democracy. We are keenly aware of this because Taiwan has come a long way in our pursuit of press freedom. In the space of just a few decades, Taiwan broke down long-standing restrictions on civic participation and the media. Today, Taiwan is home to a vibrant media landscape, recognized as one of the freest in Asia by Reporters Without Borders. We are also pleased that more and more international media outlets are stationing correspondents in Taiwan. At the same time, however, Taiwan is the target of more external disinformation than any other country. With our decades of experience in countering authoritarian influence operations, we understand better than most how authoritarian actors seek to solve social and political discord in democracies. We also know that our responses to the threat of disinformation must be rooted in democratic governance that values transparency and openness. To this end, we have established a new Ministry of Digital Affairs to bolster our ongoing efforts to promote media literacy and improve our national cybersecurity. We have also been encouraged to see that our initiatives to promote transparency, fact-checking, and media engagement have tangibly benefited the public. An example of such initiatives is the regular press conferences held by our Central Epidemic Command Center throughout the pandemic that have helped expose disinformation and educate the public. I'm also glad to note that this year's AIB events include a series of discussions on Taiwan with a talk by our Digital Minister, Audrey Tan. I hope that by sharing our experiences with the international community, we can help one another in protecting media freedom and cultivate media literacy for the digital age. Taiwan is committed to a free and open media, and we are willing and ready to help advance media freedom across the broader international community. I want to extend my gratitude to everyone in attendance for your hard work, and my congratulations to all the nominees and award winners. Your recognition today is richly deserved. Thank you.
Thank you, President Tsai. Now, this new venue for the AIBs is really historic. During the Second World War, both Houses of Parliament met here after Parliament had been bombed. And in 1945, the first meetings of the United Nations Preparatory Commission and Security Council took place in this building. Much has happened here over the decades. And talking of history, I think we have to mention a centenary that's just been marked, the centenary of the BBC. 100 years of broadcasting and digital reporting on events that shaped everyone's lives, entertaining people at home and around the world, and leading some of the most significant technological advances in broadcasting. It's impossible to sum up the BBC's first 100 years. Let's have a quick look. Well, a very rapid canter there through the last 100 years. And I have to say that I was last night looking for my blue Peter badge. Yes, I did win one. But I moved house a few weeks ago and I don't know quite which box it's in, so I'm rather disappointed that I'm not with my blue Peter badge today. It was a long time ago that I won that, and it was before the BBC gave me a job. I don't know whether they still regret that, but never mind. Anyway, happy birthday, BBC. And given that important milestone, I think it's fitting that the host of tonight's AIBs is someone who's a current member of BBC staff, serving audiences in the Persian-speaking world. Let me introduce Rana Rahimpour of BBC News Persian.
Thank you, Simon. It's a great privilege to be in this historic venue and, as Simon noted, somewhere so central to the events of the last few weeks that were watched and listened right across the world. Indeed, it was in this room that heads of states were entertained immediately after the funeral of Her late Majesty the Queen. This venue is the heart of the fabric of British life. It's also wonderful to be at the AIB again. It doesn't feel like it's been 3 years ago since we managed to get together, and this is where I interviewed the remarkable Willard Wigan, an artist who makes miniature pieces of art. But tonight is a celebration of the work of journalists and program makers from around the world. People at the top of their game when it comes to informing the world about the world. And although we say something similar every year, but really there has never been a greater need for free, impartial, accurate information. As is so evident, whether it's Russia or North Korea, or whether it's the coverage of what's happening in Ukraine. Independent and accurate information is vital for the country that I broadcast to every day, Iran, where all broadcasting is controlled by the state, where people have been deprived of real trustworthy story, and from their own local broadcasters, they don't hear the truth. So millions of people rely on broadcasters such as BBC Persian, Iran International, and VOA Persian to make sense of what's going on in their very own country. And many of us journalists who deliver this content, as well as our family members in Iran, face harassment for simply doing our jobs. But need for trustworthy, impartial news and information is also for all of us, wherever we live. We need it to make sense of our lives and the world around us. So to all the journalists, producers, directors, commissioners, in fact, entire teams, thank you for the work that you do that help keep us going. Now let's get underway with tonight's packed award agenda. If you've attended the AIB Awards before, I think you already know how this evening will go. It's reassuringly familiar. We're going to see and hear clips of all the shortlisted entries. Then I'll reveal the winners and invite them to the stage to tell us a bit about their work. And it's going to be a very busy, packed evening, so there will be an interlude for dinner, you'll be pleased to hear. But for now, let's get going.
The worst floods in 100 years hit Malaysia in December 2021. 100,000 people were forced to leave their homes, and damage in Selangor was estimated at almost $1.5 billion. CNA covered the disaster.
At this point, there is a donation tent here with essential items that are given, maybe like toothbrushes, ponchos, and some dry clothing as well for the victims of the flash floods here. But donation drives are also calling for cleaning items, because in the weeks to come, when the water levels recede, the residents have to go home and clean out their houses. And that's not going to be an easy job, because they have to possibly repaint their houses, they have to scrape the mud off their walls and get rid of that filth and stench because of all the garbage that have been strewn around in this area. So those are the most pressing things that residents will have to deal with, and the victims will have to deal with right now.
From the moment the first explosions hit Kyiv on the 24th of February, CNN reported the invasion from positions across Ukraine, and from the city of Belgorod in Russia, from where missiles were being fired into Ukraine.
I'm at the last checkpoint before the front line near Kharkiv. I'm on the Russian side. I'm south of the town of Belgorod. And what you see behind me over there, that's the sort of last checkpoint. And in that direction over there, that's where Kharkiv would be, where we had Sam Kiley before. So what we've been seeing here over the past couple of minutes, over the past really 45 minutes since we've been here, there's more rockets that's being fired right now. If we look in the sky, we can see it there. If we pan up, there's another salvo being fired right now. So you can see in this area, the Russians firing artillery rockets towards Ukraine.
When Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February, millions of Ukrainians fled their homes seeking safety from the war. Voice of America reported from the Medica crossing as refugees poured across the border.
Millions of lives broken apart in the space of a few days. As the crisis escalates, the UN's International Organization for Migration Friday appealed for $350 million to support its operations in Ukraine and neighboring countries.
The flow of refugees is unrelenting and appears to be increasing by the day. There are now many thousands of people gathered here at the border crossing point in Medica, and the United Nations expects that several million people will come across the border from Ukraine in the coming weeks.
Natural and man-made catastrophes dominating the breaking news category. Our judges were unanimous in deciding that the winner for traditional frontline journalism that treated raw human suffering with empathy is CNN for its coverage of the war in Ukraine. Congratulations. Take some photos. You want to take photos with the camera? Yeah. Many congratulations to everyone. It's been a very tough year for many journalists. Many people didn't expect Putin to invade Ukraine even until a few weeks before the invasion. How did your team deal with the surprise?
even a few minutes before the invasion, I would say, because I was standing up there on the roof of the hotel in Kiev, basically doing a live shot about how I didn't think it was going to happen. And the bombs started falling in the Ukrainian capital, so I sort of vowed never to try and predict what Putin is going to do again. But how we dealt with it, well, you go back to basics, you cover what you see, and you report what unfolds in front of you, which was actually at that time relatively easy and quite dramatic.
It's 9 months on. How are you maintaining the coverage, especially with the difficulty of the human stories and the challenges?
Well, we've got a huge team that's been deployed consistently to Ukraine, where we're making every effort we possibly can to get to those human stories. I'll be going back in a couple of days, and we've got lots of people working behind the scenes as well, making sure that we bring those stories to our big international audience.
Many congratulations. Thank you very much. Sure.
Can I just add one more thing, and that is we have a great team of Ukrainian journalists working with us in Ukraine, and we cannot do anything we do there without them, so this is really for them.
All respect for the Ukrainian journalists. Thank you.
At the age of 15, British-born Shamima Begum left the UK to join ISIS in Syria. Denied permission to return to the UK, her story remains the subject of debate and speculation. Good morning, Britain.
We said at the outset of this interview that you wanted to make a direct appeal to the British Prime Minister. What do you want to say to him?
I want to say that you are clearly struggling with extremism and terrorism in your country, and I want to help with that, with giving my own, telling you my own experience with these extremists and what they say and how they persuade people to do what they do and to come to places like Syria, and I think I could very much help you in your fight against terrorism, because you clearly don't know what you're doing.
Over the past 2 years, British politics has been in disarray. Partygate was a defining story, broken in a series of daily scoops by ITV News.
We're told the event that afternoon lasted 20 to 30 minutes. Later in the evening, ITV News understands family friends also went up to the Prime Minister's residence, though Downing Street deny that part.
This is yet more evidence that we've got a Prime Minister who believes that the rules that he made don't apply to him. And so we've got a Prime Minister and a government that spend their whole time mopping up sleaze and deceit. The Prime Minister is a national distraction. He's got to go.
On the 2nd of April, AFP broke the news of the mass killing in Bucha that shocked the world.
Не думаємо, ви ж самі бачите, це просто мирні жителі, які йшли ось картошку ніс. І снайпери лупашили, ви ж самі бачите, в голову, всіх в голову. От скуки.
Це військові злочини, і це буде визнано світом як геноцид.
В оцій довгій братській могилі поховано 57 чоловік. І тут 20, десь тіл 40.
The southern city of Mykolaiv was on the front line of Russia's war in Ukraine. Belgium's VTM reported from the city for a week, covering urban warfare, untold heroism and utter horror.
En rond het mortuarium liggen nu tussen de 70 en de 80 lichamen die wachten om te worden geïdentificeerd en opgehaald. Sergei is de wanhoop nabij. Er komen veel meer lijken bij dan dat er kunnen worden afgevoerd.
Я просто своими словами скажу, это уже даже не война. Это не война, это просто пиздец и геноцид. Есть война, когда есть честный бой, есть Красный Крест и все остальное. А есть то, когда просто идет истребление.
RFE-RL correspondents were spread out across Ukraine and the front line, providing immediate reporting on the unfolding events.
Мы видели, на свои глаза видел 4 погибших, 2 молодых ребят, лет по 20, лет по 18. Маленький ребенок, тоже лет до 10, женщина, они все лежали уже погибшие.
И детей бьют, они жен бьют, они всех бьют, и все одно.
Побачив, як лежить моя мати, і вона горить. І вона ще була тоді жива, коли горіла, в неї дергалася нога.
Romania's Antenna 3 found itself covering the war on its own border as tens of thousands of Ukrainians fled into the country to escape the Russian invasion.
În ultimele ore, aproape 2000 de oameni au ajuns la Vama Isacea, speriați, înfrigurați și cu doar câteva bagaje.
După zile întregi pe drumuri, toți acești oameni văd în sfârșit țărmul românesc.
Va fi prima noapte când vor dormi aproape liniștiți, spun aproape liniștiți pentru că gândurile lor sunt la cei pe care i-au lăsat în urmă în Ucraina.
Nu știu ce li se întâmplă, nu au auzit de război, însă speră că mesajele lor sunt auzite.
Fie pace și tot fie liniște în planetă.
Peace for the planet, I think that's a wish that many of us have, but at the moment it doesn't sound very likely. We have 2 commendations from our judges. Firstly, for maintaining its focus on reporting on the effects on ordinary people. AFP TV for its coverage in Ukraine. And for strong, focused coverage across the country, RFE-RL also for its work in Ukraine. And the winner of the continuing news category for what judges said was dogged tenacity and sheer depth of storytelling that changed the course of British politics is ITN ITV News Partygate coverage. Congratulations. So it was a very big story, and I would like to know, how did ITV News become the organization that uncovered what is possibly one of the biggest British scandals for decades?
It all came down to our sources, and there were many of them from across the political spectrum who wanted to help us tell this story, which was never about cake and carver as much as people try to dismiss it as that. It was about truth and trust, which are the qualities that all of us pursue as journalists. And I just want to say a big thank you to my producer, Nathan Lee, without whom we never would have uncovered the full extent of Partygate, and also our head of investigations, Imogen Barra, who turned what is traditionally a kind of newspaper story into some fantastic television, and also our editors, Andrew Dagnall, and before him, Rachel Corb, who had the guts to take on Number 10, and Delilah Jury, and all of the team who turned it into some great documentaries too.
It was a great documentary indeed. How did you verify the stories? It was a very sensitive subject.
It all came down to sourcing, so we had several different sources behind each of the scoops that we broadcast, and the makeup of those sources was different each time that we broadcast them. So it was just about being absolutely concrete in what we were being told. And often when we went to Number 10 with our story, they couldn't really put up a denial, which is also quite helpful.
So without a doubt, you made history. Thank you very much. Very well done. Thank you.
Ukrainecast from BBC News brings together BBC correspondents and analysts to report on events in the war-ravaged country.
That is coming out of Ukraine. Days 5. It's 8 days. It's 22 days. It's 32 days.
As well as the voices of citizens on the ground who bear witness to the suffering and the impossible choices many face.
Kherson is the first to fall. We make contact with a resident called Hussein.
Yesterday I wake up and I saw the tanks literally next to my window with the soldiers shooting warning shots, telling civilians to go out. Complete chaos actually for a couple of hours. Then dead silent streets.
With every passing day you feel that it's difficult to survive here. I don't feel that it's going to get normal anytime soon.
Your little girl is only 3. Does she have any idea what's going on?
The first thing is that, she's too young to understand what is happening, but obviously she understands that something is abnormal.
Bloomberg Radio had wall-to-wall coverage of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in the minutes and hours after the first attacks occurred, as well as covering the grave humanitarian crisis. Bloomberg analysed the upending of global financial markets.
Bloomberg's Tony Halpin says President Putin claims he is taking action to protect civilians from Ukraine's military, though there's no evidence they were under any threat.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says Putin could have been deterred if there had been sanctions sooner. Even before the attack, he was calling for stronger penalties on Russia.
It sends a strong message to Putin, but it still doesn't stop him, so it means we need more sanctions, we need the second wave, and then probably the third wave, until it gets clear to him that he shouldn't make any step further.
It was shortly before 4 a.m. as the news of the first attacks on Ukraine began to reach the BBC World Service newsroom. Newsday ripped up its planned running order, turning to voices in Ukraine, Poland and the US that captured a range of emotions as the programme pieced together what was happening across Ukraine.
And as you say, how terrifying it must be, especially when we heard earlier from the President Zelensky saying that the Russians were attacking infrastructure and border guards, but now it appears that some civilian targets may be hurt. I just saw some footage which showed residential buildings, like a residential block, which appeared to have been hit. Have you heard any confirmation of that?
Yes, the Interior Ministry and the Armed Forces of Ukraine confirmed to me and several other journalists that civilian infrastructure has been hit. Unfortunately, there were some apartment buildings on the outskirts of Kharkiv, which borders Russia and the northeast there, where at least one civilian was killed. Several others were wounded.
Japanese fashion brand Muji has removed reference to Xinjiang cotton from its products sold in Hong Kong, Taiwan and Japan. But has the company really stopped using cotton grown and processed by persecuted Uyghurs and other groups in Xinjiang? Different labels in different countries.
兵团的话，它是一个在新疆的话，它就是一个特殊的存在，也就是它是不归那个新疆政府管嘛，所以的话，它有很多特权，就它占据了很多就有水的地方，然后就耕田比较好的那个比较面积比较大的那种耕田的话，所以的话，就像这种在新疆生产的，比如说棉花也好，那个西红柿也好，就跟兵团的话就是脱不了关系。
Perhaps it's time for us to pay more attention to where our clothing originates. So now our judges summed up the winner with a single word: impressive. And the winner is BBC long-form audio for BBC Sounds and Ukraine Cast 100 Days.
Searching for someone to come around. So come on over, the time is right. I got love going round in my mind. I don't know how I feel, I don't know if it's real. I just know you're gonna do me right. Do me right, right, right.
Many congratulations. I want to take some photos. Congratulations. Ukraine Cast came about within a few hours after the invasion. It was a very rapid decision and difficult to decide which stories to choose because there were so many stories to cover. What was your strategy in terms of which human stories to pick?
Honestly, I don't think there was a strategy. I think because the decision was taken so quickly, we knew we wanted to do it, we knew it was the right thing to do, and so a small team started, obviously we had correspondents out there, but phone bashing to talk to Ukrainians, and we collected over the weeks and months a kind of family of contributors. You heard a couple of them there, Hussein in Kherson. I mean, it's kind of, today is the day when Kherson is hopefully back under Ukrainian control, but we have been following Hussein since the day the Russians took over that city.
How does reaction and engagement with the audience differ between a podcast and a broadcast?
Do you want to take that?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. I think with a podcast, you feel more intimate, you feel closer to your audience, you're not lecturing at them, it feels like it's a two-way conversation. But also, I think what Victoria said, there wasn't really a strategy, and because it's so flexible, we were able to move very quickly with whatever was happening, respond to what was happening in Ukraine, but not just in Ukraine, in Russia as well, because this is a story that is affecting both of those countries so deeply. So I think, in a way, that was the kind of strength, it was the improvisational aspect of it.
I don't know who I should ask this question, but so the war seems to continue. How long are you planning to continue Ukraine Cast?
As long as it goes on. And we are, of course, honoured to have this prize. It's a beautiful prize, but it also feels as though there's blood and tears on it. So let's remember the people of Ukraine who we're talking about, the people who've gone through awful, awful events in Ukraine, and this is what we're determined to bear witness to.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Over the course of 2 years, Dementia and Us followed 4 people suffering the disease, together with their families.
Sometimes he just goes off and away with the fairies.
Oh, just have one more. I went, no, I really can't drink it. Just have one more.
He's started to pick at his hands. They're a mess. He can be sat in a chair and he's not there. And I can see it in his eyes, he's lost.
As dementia spreads, we literally lose our brain power. As nerve cells die and different areas of the brain shrink, it can be really exhausting trying to keep up with the world around us.
A league of extraordinary makers are creators who just can't stop making.
And so it's a machine learning algorithm that's trained with thousands of images of moths in human eyes until it actually starts to output its own moths. And these moths actually have human eyes on their wings. And the cool thing about these moths, or these moth images, is that computer surveillance picks them up and thinks they're real humans, instead of picking up my own eyes.
The theft of Picasso's Weeping Woman from the National Gallery of Victoria in 1986 made headlines as the thieves taunted authorities. Framed.
The most expensive painting in the country has vanished. We've now got 2 letters from the thieves doubling down on their threat to destroy the Weeping Woman. Unless, that is, their demands for increased arts funding are met. The scrutiny on the gallery has revealed a woefully inadequate security system, and the painting is not insured. And then there's the police investigation.
It seemed from the very beginning that the police, without some specialised assistance, were just absolutely the wrong people to solve this crime.
You might think that we have mapped every inch of our planet's surface, but look closer and you'll find there's so much more to uncover. Will Smith goes on an extraordinary adventure in Welcome to Earth.
If you could hear this, it would be like you were next to a jackhammer. Right. And you would not be able to have a conversation. What you're hearing is infrasound.
Right. Talk about low. Infrasound is bass and then some. So when you feel it, you better pay attention. Huh? What'd you say? We need to leave? Okay, I heard you.
Infrasound just told you that?
Infrasound said we need to get the hell out of here.
What is reality? This is a question that has vexed philosophers for millennia. Can we trust those who tell us the truth? Or is what we see and hear being manipulated to deceive us? The truth illusion.
As governments become less genuinely responsive to the needs of their people and increasingly serve a set of interests which are not those of the vast majority of the population, then the notion that they are a force of good or that they are telling the truth similarly recedes.
The politics of a manipulative populism is the best way of describing it. Manipulative populism is about constructing false emotions or built anger, hatred.
Nearly 180,000 illegal immigrants with criminal records are tonight roaming free to threaten peaceful citizens.
Isn't it so worrying to see how many people are ready to challenge the truth and believe their own truth these days? And that's where we all need to step up. Now, this highly varied category has 2 commendations. First, for amazing photography and detailed conversations with scientists. Notopia, Protozoa, Westbrook and Maggio, welcome to Earth. And for an extraordinary program on maker spaces, Storyteller Films for CNA Media Corp, a League of Extraordinary Maker. And the winner for what the judges said was timely, thought-provoking, balanced and fair is Al Jazeera iUnit, Al Jazeera Investigations, The Truth Illusion. To say something.
Yeah, we're imposters. We are representing the unit. We are scattered all around the world. And Peter Charlie made this film. He gave me words to say, which were that he wanted to thank our amazing cameramen, Craig Pennington, Colin McIntyre, Leo Sofogiannis who cut it, but it was Peter's creation, and this is definitely Peter's award.
Congratulations, Peter. So how do you define truth?
That's why I wish Peter was here. I guess you need to watch the film and then decide.
So the program concentrated on how truth is perceived in the US. What were the most extraordinary things that your colleague Peter uncovered?
Well, I think you could take your pick, really. I mean, obviously a lot came from the US, but as you saw, you had Peter talking about the incredible manipulation, the disinformation, the layer upon layer that's created a different view of reality. And that's what Peter wanted to strip back bit by bit.
Thank you very much, and well done, Peter. Thank you.
The cult of conspiracy, QAnon, lifts the veil on one of the most prominent conspiracies of modern times, looking at what sets people on such a divergent path of lies.
I've had 2 vaccines.
Oh, really? I'm so sorry. Do things stick to you like you see on TV?
They were like magnets.
Have you tried that?
Should we try it?
It has to go to your forehead.
Is it sticking?
I don't think so. I think you're good. I think you're okay.
So what, does that change your opinion?
No.
Is it why?
I would never get that vaccine.
It all comes down to trust, doesn't it? It comes down to trust in higher bodies. And I think ultimately the issue is that you don't trust the government.
Correct.
In the months after the Taliban swept to power in Afghanistan, the former insurgents have been struggling to run their newly proclaimed emirate, Afghanistan, inside the emirate.
Hundreds of Afghans trying to get travel documents to flee. This isn't a face the Taliban want to show. Tense fighters trying to stem the exodus with their version of crowd control.
دیگه به میانت حالا یعنی هر که ضرورت داره مجبور از مجبوریت داره که میآید یعنی کس از شوق یا بر خاطر سیل یا سطری نمی.
Dispatches, China, the search for the missing, investigates allegations of mass surveillance, detention and forced labor of the Uyghur population in China's northwest.
This more personal spying feeds into the data collected by the Chinese state electronically about every Muslim individual.
Sometimes they report directly to the secret police, which are the people that, at night come into people's homes and make arrests. So it kind of becomes a very organic, human net of surveillance and spying. And I guess this is what people mean in Xinjiang when they say that Xinjiang is really an open-air prison.
In Belarus, the short dream of freedom, we meet exiled Belarusians living in Poland and Germany who recount their experiences following the rigged election of 2020.
Sie schlugen vor unseren Augen Scheiben von Autos ein, zogen Menschen heraus und schlugen auf sie mit Schlagstöcken ein. Dann fingen die Explosionen an, die Menschen rannten weg. Wir sind auch gerannt, uns verfolgten OMON-Leute. Wie durch ein Wunder haben wir es bis nach Hause geschafft. Mein Herz bebte. Ich fing an zu bluten. Aber es war unmöglich, einen Krankenwagen zu rufen. Früh am Morgen sind wir ins Krankenhaus gegangen. Und man sagte mir, ich hätte eine Fehlgeburt erlitten.
A vast network of institutions for Native American children was set up in the 19th and 20th centuries across the USA. Their purpose was to assimilate indigenous children into the white man's world. Foreign correspondent, Stolen Spirits.
He never really talked about it, and it wouldn't be until later, later in his life, where stories would be shared. One experience shared that a soiled sheet would be used to be wiped in the mouths of the other children who spoke their language. you know, and if they didn't want those dirty sheets and soiled sheets shoved into their mouth, well, then you stop speaking your language and start speaking English. That's pretty hateful. You know, that's pretty evil.
Spring 2021. A devastating second wave of COVID sweeps through India. Breathe again. India's battle with COVID.
We had one patient coming in an auto rickshaw. They didn't have the money to even get the patient in an ambulance.
We have seen patients who are calling us, okay, we are coming from 50 kilometers, so you please keep something for us or so, right? Like we call them after some time and we have seen that they passed away in transit itself.
There were 4 people dying, every day in front of our eyes. That was the biggest challenge for the entire team, when we could not save the people, because when people come to us, oxygen level is 30, 40, 50, and we try our best to save them, but we can't do everything for everyone,
Throughout the Syrian conflict, hundreds of chemical attacks took place, killing thousands and inflicting terrible injuries. Yet, not a single perpetrator has been brought to justice. Syria, the toxic war.
It's indicative that this is done by someone that masters sarin production, someone that know how to handle sarin and have the means to deliver it to these places on a scale that would cause this. So to 95%, I would say that this is an act by the government.
Another range of hugely powerful and varied productions. We have 2 commendations. First, for bold, in-depth coverage under difficult conditions. Evan Williams Productions for Channel 4, China, The Search for the Missing. And for riveting footage and testimonials that the world definitely needs to see. BRT, Syria, the toxic war. And the winner for this category, for a brave piece of journalism that, according to the judges, had real depth, is Zandan Films for Channel 4, The Cult of Conspiracy, QAnon. Congratulations to the winners. They can't be here tonight. We'll make sure they receive their award.
In the 1970s, a free love community was established on the outskirts of New Zealand's largest city. The Commune from Stuff New Zealand investigates the country's most controversial cult.
Became a different person in so many different ways. I remember thinking one part of it, hell, you've done so much for me, I could give you $20 a week for the rest of my life. That would be not nearly enough for the goodness I feel that I've got out of this.
And they weren't just sitting around in a room and chatting. These therapy sessions were intense, lasting up to 7 days.
7 days sitting in one room with up to 20 other people. One toilet, no door.
The chapters from Al-Hurra features extraordinary individuals who've overcome social, political or economic challenges in the Arabic-speaking world, like Egyptian Randa Dyer, who was subjected to FGM at the age of 7.
لما جيت بقى من المطبخ بدأت تفوق فيا فمش بفوق فيا رندا يا ماما اصحي مفيش رندا فقلبوني لقيوا الدم واصل لغاية منبت شعري.
في بداية شهر فبراير من العام الجاري 2021 استقبل مستشفى عام في جنوب القاهرة فتاة عمرها 15 عاماً تعاني من نزيف حاد كاد يودي بحياتها. مصدر هذا النزيف قطع في شريان رئيسي في المنطقة التناسلية.
Foundering the Amazon story from Bloomberg News charts the rise of a retail upstart and how it became one of the most powerful and feared companies in the global economy.
Amazon was learning that it could mold a transportation network to its own needs, control costs, and most of all, keep up with its growth. Bezos, of course, watched this build-out carefully.
Jeff was very concerned and stayed close.
Bezos' email address is public. Jeff at Amazon.com. Whenever he got an email from customers about a botched delivery, he'd forward it on with a single piece of punctuation.
On March the 8th, 2014, flight MH370 disappeared. 239 souls were on board. Despite the most expensive and expansive search ever undertaken, we are no closer to finding out what happened. Deepest Dive, the search for MH370 from Whistledown Productions.
Simon Hardy believes the end destination was the deep trench of the Heilfink fracture zone.
So I'm now turning to get some initial alignment with it, and once I'm over it, I shall turn another
2500.
30 degrees.
So this is the line that we've put into the navigation system, which is
the Heilfink.
The Heilfink fracture zone, the fracture zone. And this is where Captain Hardy thinks we should be looking for the aircraft.
Absolutely.
And it's
all fits together, everything like a glove.
In 2021, Taiwan was gripped by Lithuania mania. It came after Lithuania shipped COVID vaccines to the island nation and allowed a Taiwanese representative office to open in Vilnius. From Lithuania with Love by RTI.
Beijing recalled its ambassador from Vilnius, expelled Lithuania's ambassador, deleted Lithuania from its customs system, and slashed Lithuanian imports by nearly 90% after that move. Did Lithuania know what they were getting into? Lithuanian MP Matas Maldeikis told me they did.
We calculated all the possible steps, and we don't have such a big trade, like the Chinese thinks that they have influence on us. In a sense, we don't have much economical relationship.
Degrees of Abuse by Al Jazeera investigates how some of Britain's most renowned universities are failing to protect students from sexual abuse by staff, including internationally respected experts.
At the time, it was a very unequal relationship.
This is a person who, intellectually at least, you admire and respect. Otherwise, why would you be working with them? This is a person who has the potential to get you a very good job, to get you published, to advance your career. So there's that level of intimidation on the female students in particular. His academic reputation was high, his personal reputation was as an alcoholic and a sexual predator.
Gabriel Gatehouse journeys into the dark undergrowth of modern America, investigating the threats to the bedrock of democracy. The Coming Storm from the BBC.
Then came January the 6th.
Following breaking news at this hour, Capitol Hill right now in Tinderbox.
And we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Breaking the gates there.
So let's walk down.
A mob stormed the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., scaling the walls, smashing the barricades, beating police officers. They were bent on overturning the result of a democratic election, baying for the blood of those they called traitors. I sat, glued to my TV, overwhelmed by a feeling of impotent vindication.
If you're wondering what punctuation mark Amazon's Jeff Bezos used, it was a question mark. Now there is a commendation from our judges for an intricate and intellectual weaving of content and narrative for BBC long-form audio, The Coming Storm. And the winner, for a production that the judges said must have moved the debate and theories on, is Whistledown Productions for Audible, Deepest Dive, The Search for MH370. Congratulations. Very much. Thank you. I'll take a picture. Very well done. Tell us the catalyst was to make a podcast nearly 8 years after the disappearance of MH370.
I would say utter dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction with the search, how it had progressed and not progressed, and the fact that this mystery, I mean, think about everything that's happened in the world since 2014. This happened on the same month. In fact, it's the week before Putin invaded the Crimea. And the world has changed so much, yet the families of the 239 people that went missing on that day have no answers. And so I was sort of motivated to try and tell the story.
So as the judges said, the podcast has moved on the theories. Has anything changed since you moved on the theories? Are there more investigations?
There was talk of another search next year, but the latest that we've heard is that it won't happen, which is a tragedy, but we're hopeful. Hopefully the year after, maybe 2024.
Hopefully. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Edward VIII, Britain's traitor king, reveals new evidence of the extent of the Duke of Windsor's treachery during World War II.
Your Royal Highness has taken active military rank, and refusal to obey direct orders of competent military authority would create a serious situation. I most strongly urge immediate compliance with wishes of the government. Now, this is a Prime Minister threatening a former king with a court-martial. This is a very serious offence. It's unique in British history that a sovereign has been threatened with court-martial. Little does Churchill know that this is actually not the beginning of the end, but there is going to be much more trouble in store.
It is 3 decades since the guns fell silent in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but a resurgence of Serb nationalism is bringing painful memories to the surface, especially among women. Bosnia, a frozen reconciliation.
To jutro I nebo je gorjelo. I nebo je gorjelo od silnih granata. U jednom momentu niste znali zaista da li meci više izlaze iz zemlje ili iz neba ili sa strane, ili to je. Uopće nije, bilo je jedno zaista konfuzno stanje.
On the charge sheet of human history, few things have left such an indelible stain as slavery. In 1,000 Years a Slave, David Olusoga uncovers the deeply personal stories of those whose ancestors suffered oppression and exploitation.
People kidnapped from the so-called Rice Coast of West Africa weren't just stolen for the capacity of their bodies, but also for their skills and knowledge.
Because of the similar terrain of South Carolina to Sierra Leone, it was perfect for rice growing, and Sierra Leoneans had developed a very sought-after talent that South Carolinians wanted and needed to help cultivate their rice plantations.
The Iran-Iraq War, a tragedy that changed history, tells the story of the vicious 8-year conflict that shaped the Middle East and the world.
At midday on September the 22nd, 1980, Saddam ordered 200 fighter bombers into Iraq. His tanks rolled east. His troops were optimistic. Iraqis compared the war to the ancient battle of Qadisiyah between Muslim Arabs and infidel Persians.
The history of New Zealand and its people is complex. The Aotearoa History Show covers the stories that have shaped the country and its peoples.
Pounamu was so important to Māori, still is, that it was traded all over New Zealand. But they weren't using cash. Instead, Māori used a system of gift exchange, kind of like a mental IOU. A good example of this is kai haukai, the ceremonial exchange of kai, of food. Your whānau might harvest birds in summer months, you would preserve some to eat in the winter, but also to give some to other people within or beyond your hapu. So later that year, when your stock of preserved birds were running low, your neighbour might harvest inanga, whitebait, and share that with you. Mean deal.
What could be better, or a more British way to get people to open up their conversations over a cup of tea? In Tea and Medals, Darren Coventry talks to men and women who have received medals for gallantry.
And at that point, I just started getting contact reports in from all of the OPs as the Serbs launched their attack. And ostensibly, for the rest of the afternoon, we fought the Serbs. We got a message to the Bosnian army in the town that Serbs had crossed the line, and I was happy to abandon impartiality for a period of time. But they had 6,500 weapons, 8,000 troops, and I needed some of them up because there were only about 40 of us on the hills, and the Serbs were attacking in waves.
Another remarkably varied category delving into our collective past. The judges wanted to commend two of the entries. Firstly, for an intelligent, unflinching and informative story, Viacom's CBS, Channel 5, 1,000 Years a Slave. And for an accomplished and revealing production with clever use of colorization, Yeti Television for Channel 4, Edward Yates, Britain's Traitor King. And the winner of the historical documentary category for expert use of newly discovered footage and moving interviews with those who fought goes to OR Media and the Iran-Iraq War, a tragedy that changed history. Congratulations to the producers. This is a story that, as an Iranian, is very close to my heart. I was born during Iran-Iraq War, and I was looking forward to meeting the producers, but unfortunately, they're not able to join us tonight.
Frontline medical teams in the UK have fine-tuned their physical treatment of severely ill COVID patients. But there's a need to help patients, often on ventilators for weeks, maintain their will to live and to enable families to stay connected with them. On the COVID ward.
A couple of days after my dad had been ventilated, it was his birthday. It was literally 2 or 3 days later. So we were still all, quite reeling at this point. I remember waking up that morning and being just so incredibly sad that it was your birthday and that, there was no one to make a fuss of you, there was no one to wish you happy birthday. And I phoned up in the morning for an update and happened to mention it was your birthday. But they said, oh, don't worry, he's got a birthday card. But when we open it up, every single member of staff who visited his bedside for something that day has written a message in it to him.
Millennial History meets young people who have witnessed major events in recent history, up close.
When I came to the States, and I still do it now, I used to turn around in bed. At some point in the night, I would have to switch around, and I would end up with my head at the foot of the bed. 3 kids in a crib, 3 4-year-olds in a crib is very... I don't remember there being a lot of room. It was very cozy. You're in the crib a lot, so you get very close. People ask me all the time, oh, do you want to meet your biological parents? I said, no, I don't want to meet my biological parents. I want to meet all the kids in the orphanage. I want to know what happened to them.
How did the former head girl carry out a sophisticated catfishing scam on a member of her own family? Sweet Bobby tells the story of a slow-burning, yet complex deception.
Went up onto the motorway, and as I was driving, got to the M25, saw signs for Gatwick, and I thought, screw it, I've got the address. Why don't I just go to Brighton and just see him?
Kirit decides it's time to confront him. And when I heard the story for the first time, I was willing her on. Go to Brighton, I was thinking. Be brave, just do it. Because how much grief can one woman take? This deceit had been going on now for 8 years, and the catfisher showed no signs of stopping. If Kirat didn't do something herself to drag out the truth, there's no reason to believe that things just wouldn't have kept going.
Ukraine War Diaries harnessed WhatsApp to engage 3 Ukrainians to tell their own personal experiences of war in their country. From Kyiv to Donbass, citizen storytellers have been sharing how their lives have changed.
Yesterday, actually, and the day before yesterday, I was visiting Hostomel and Bucha. I'm now volunteering and helping to provide some humanitarian aid. And but I have seen a number of cars with the shields where it was signed children. And there were dozens of bullets in these cars. And sorry, just emotions after yesterday.
In 1998, Felix Gretarsson suffered a catastrophic accident while working on high-voltage power lines, losing both arms. He never gave up on his seemingly impossible dream of a double arm transplant. Felix, life and limb.
It was a weird feeling. It was the first time in all of this process that I really felt a little bit like, what the fuck did I get myself into? I was swinging between excitement and fear. It's about 7 o'clock when they start prepping me. There is a little bit of time that goes just for the anesthetist to prep me and keeping me under the whole time and keeping me alive while this is happening. That is first 2 hours.
Shahrazad Akbar understands the transformative power of education. As a girl, her schooling was stopped the last time the Taliban came to power. Yet she became the first Afghan woman to pursue a postgrad degree at Oxford University. A wish for Afghanistan.
What do you say to the critics, which includes Taliban, which includes members of your own society, who say Shahrazad Akbar is a member of the elite, she's westernized, she doesn't represent the majority of Afghan women?
I never can claim that I represent all Afghan women or the majority of Afghan women. I am a feminist, I am educated, yes, I have studied in the West, but my core values I learned from my parents. And my core values are humans are equal. God meant for us to be equal.
Joseph Stockhausen came out as trans to his mum Pauline at the age of 15. Now they are sharing their personal journey with a range of guests who have gone through the transition process. Let's be transparent.
I've had a lot of folks come to me over the years around just how to navigate, how to have a conversation. What are they, you know, often parents know like the what and the why, but they just need to understand the how. And, you know, I need to say that I'm not the queen of all things to do with navigating this. My story is my journey, but I've helped support a number of parents who have children who have either questioned their gender or want to consider transitioning.
Another incredible shortlist of human interest radio productions. There is a commendation from the judges for a brilliant conceptualization of a niche subject, Tortoise Media Sweet Bobby. And the winner for a program with tremendous emotional appeal that created a sound journey for the imagination is RTE Documentary of One, Felix, Life and Limb.
Very well done.
Collecting it on their behalf. I work for television, it was done by Charlotte Devlin with the team, the Doc on One team at RTE Radio. They weren't actually expecting to win, so they asked me to come and collect possibly a commendation
It's a story that is very difficult to imagine for many of us and to understand what Felix went through. Why did the story of an Icelandic man catch the attention of your colleagues?
I think because it was a really powerful human story of somebody who literally lost his limbs, his arms, and came back from it. His life spiraled into a sort of a pitiful drug addiction, and he later came back. So it's a story of human triumph. I think that's probably what grabbed them, and also it's a two-parter. So this is the return to that story.
So it's 2 years on. How is he doing?
I think he's doing very well. His arms are working, and he's embracing life. I understand that things are going really well for him, much better than he would ever have expected.
That's an incredible story. Thank you very much, and extend our congratulations to your colleagues. Thank you.
VRT's Pano, Hidden Date Rape Drugs, explains the trend of spiking and explores the consequences for the victims of these crimes that are sweeping
Hoe
Belgium.
raken daders aan die verkrachtingsdrugs en hoe groot is de markt? Online raken we al snel in chatgroepen als WhatsApp en Telegram met duizenden tot tienduizenden anonieme Vlaamse en Nederlandse leden. Er is vraag en aanbod. In reclamefilmpjes worden producten openlijk in de markt gezet als het middel om een slachtoffer volledig weerloos te maken.
Slab City is a unique, off-grid community in California. Its residents claim they live in the last free place in America. Ben Fogle and the Lost City by Channel 5.
If you did this in Portland, would you be seen as crazy and
absolutely.
unwanted?
I couldn't dress like this. I lived in the suburbs of Portland, and I could not dress like this there. I had to assimilate to live in the suburbs, and it was killing me, dude. Yeah, but I'm awed in the fact that I wake up in the morning and I smoke weed until the time I go to bed. I do whatever art I feel like. I don't have a clock. I don't have a calendar. I don't know what day of the week it is right now. So, you know, compared to like everybody else in modern society, I'm a little bit odd. I don't watch television. I have no idea what's going on in the world because I don't watch the news at all, you know? It's blissful.
The disappearance and murder of Gabby Petito gripped America and the world, becoming an online sensation. The murder of Gabby Petito, Truth, Lies and Social Media by ITN Productions.
It's over-encompassing the amount of people involved in this case. It's mind-blowing.
I see a lot of videos being like, oh, why are people talking about Gabby Petito case so much? I think a lot of it has to do with maybe he did just leave her somewhere. Maybe he did just leave her and went home. Like, there is a chance she could still be alive, and I think people are trying to find her safe. I thought maybe I could help find her. I'm really good at the internet. I set out my mission to see if I could find anything.
Putin's regime has been offering poor and rural youth a way to improve their lives by joining the military. Putin's Child Soldiers by SBS Dateline.
Thousands of military clubs like Cascade are spread throughout the country. Catering for under-18s, cadets learn weapons and military tactics in preparation for their compulsory military service. Each year, about 260,000 men aged 18 to 27 are conscripted for 12 months. Many will then sign contracts to join the army full-time.
У нас и девиз такой, вы знаете, в Каскаде. То есть больше пота здесь, меньше крови будет там.
Women in finance represent a minority. In WDR's Dragon Women, we hear what it takes for a woman to survive in one of the most competitive professions in the world.
La séduction, c'est très très important. Je pense que je suis une séductrice et c'est peut-être pour ça que j'aime mon métier aussi, parce que je dois séduire mes collaborateurs, mes collègues, mes clients, donc je suis dans mon milieu naturel. Mais c'est une séduction qui est légère, c'est les faire adhérer, c'est leur faire envie de travailler ensemble, mais ça s'arrête là.
Alors, qu'est-ce que tu me recommandes, hein?
Si tu veux prendre un petit apéritif.
Oui, mais je ne veux pas boire beaucoup d'alcool.
On se prend une petite coupe.
Là, c'est une petite coupe, hein. Bah oui, une petite coupe, hein, ouais.
C'est mon anniversaire aujourd'hui.
Toi, c'est vrai?
In Kate Garraway, Caring for Derek by Flickr Productions, we see how the whole family is coming to terms with the long-term health and disability impact of COVID.
Do you think Derek is happy? Do you think Derek is content and happy in your front room, in the oxygen tent, not moving, having carers 24 hours a day? Do you think that is actually what he would want?
I mean, that's a hard question because, of course, you'd want that more than being dead. But I feel over the last month, the kind of light's got out of his eyes a bit. I feel like he's less than when he first came home. I feel he is frustrated, and I feel, well, not just frustrated, I feel he is disappearing a bit.
Husband and wife Zahid and Shanur established Para Liquor School in a remote village 9,500 feet above sea level. Each year they make the journey from Lahore as Never Out of Reach by CNA Discovers.
एक खामोश खिदमतगार की तरफ से हमारे अवरा स्कूल के लिए स्कूल के बच्चों के लिए और टीचर्स के लिए शूज़ का डोनेशन आया है तो आज हम सब बच्चों का फुटप्रिंट ले रहे हैं ताकि जल्द से जल्द इनको अपने उसके मुताबिक साइज के मुताबिक शूज़ भी दें.
Okay, quick survey. Hands up, how many people would give up their lives and move to Slab City that we saw earlier? No one? Will you take me with you? So, what did our judges make of all those very different programs? They asked for a commendation for a life-affirming and entertaining program, Never Out of Reach by Just Another Production for CNA Media Corp. And the winner of the Human Interest Award for its honesty and sensitivity and profound impact on the viewer is Flickr Productions for ITV, Kate Garraway, Caring for Derek. Very many congratulations. It's a program demonstrated that the very challenges, the huge challenges of caring for someone with an immense set of problems at home. How did the audience react to it?
There's been a really supportive reaction to Kate and her choice to share her story with everyone. I think Kate really feels that she's representative of the hundreds and thousands of families across the UK who are all now struggling in a care situation because of what happened with COVID, and really tapped into a feeling across the nation that we need to do more to support the carers.
We see that Derek Draper travels to Mexico for treatment. What's been the result of that?
He's doing very well. He's back home now, and Kate's still his full-time carer. Only time will tell. It's one of those really difficult illnesses where just time and, yes, watch this space.
It must be so difficult for the family. Thank you so much, and congratulations. Very well done to Flickr Productions. We have now reached the halfway point of tonight's AIBs. It's been quite a ride so far. I'll see you in a little while. In the meantime, bon appetit, or as they say it in my language, Persian, Nusha Jan.
We'll be back with the second part of our awards after dinner. There's all this still to come.